This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather Ho there. It's Jessica John and welcoming you to a very unusual sports catastrophe on this day. Because on this day, November the 6th, in the year of 1869, college football finally was born as the first college football game was played as Princeton and Rutgers played to a 6-4 game. Obviously, the rules of college football were a whole lot different. But rather than talk about the first game and the implications, I decided to use this as a springboard to talk about college football and basically the history of college football in my mind. I'm trying my best not to cheat and use different sources for my stuff. That I just do it from my head. So bear with me, my head's not that good sometimes. So anyway, college football was a whole lot different than what we know in 2023. Back in the 1900s, it was so brutal that Teddy Roosevelt almost banned football from being played as a sport, saying that was too brutal. But he decided to do some kind of rules and get the college coaches to talk about how they can make football safer and all that, because it was a deadly sport. And of course, sports medicine back in the 1900s was a whole lot different than the 2020s. So anyway, it was a huge moment. And the fact of the matter is that college football sure changed a lot. It didn't really pick up speed till 1913 when the forward pass was introduced, meaning that you could throw the football forward to a receiver, to somebody. Most college football games were just basically running with the ball or just doing rugby style and then passing it backwards so I could score a touchdown and all that. So yeah, things changed with the forward pass, and Notre Dame introduced. Notre Dame also brought college football into the mainland by 1924, having the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, as they call it, be a good running back. I can't remember the college football YouTuber who does this, but he did a retrospect on 1924 and how big it was. It was also big because over in Illinois, Red Grange was such a great draw for college football, so much so that over 70,000 people packed Illinois Stadium to watch Illinois take on a powerful Michigan squad, and Red Grange just basically ran all over Michigan. And it brought Illinois some substance. So, besides, it was just hard to swallow sometimes. But yeah, college football then started to pick up popularity. Knute Rockne was around, being one of the best head coaches ever. The 1930s brought the Great Depression. College football was in a little bit of a depression themselves. Well, the country was in a way. The 1940s brought a couple years in which, military schools, not like Navy and Army, but like Iowa, Great Lakes, Military Academy, and all that. They would be playing college football games against NCAA squads. All that. But those military schools would cheat and use like players from different schools and put them in one school and all that. Kind of like all-star teams, if you will. And all that. But, they were fighting World War II, so that was huge back home. The 1950s had been dominated by one school and one school only. That was the University of Oklahoma, who won 47 straight games at one point. It was just amazing how you can go through like so many years without losing a game. The other days, teams play like 13, and then the college football playoff, it would be about, 3 full seasons without losing a game? Like Georgia hasn't lost in a while. 28 games, but, that's just a comparison. Then you got yourself the 1960s, in which college football started getting into color. TV contracts were the norm and all that. Schools were starting to get noticed. Players were starting to get noticed. with the whole NFL draft and now the AFL draft, teams were fighting and all that for college football recognition and all of that. Oh, what was called the game of the century in 1966, Notre Dame versus Michigan State. That actually ended up a 10-10 tie. But yeah, it was huge and all that. Me being an Arkansas Razorback fan, 1969 was huge because Arkansas at number 2 would face the number 1 team in the school country, Texas, and Texas would win that famous 1 versus 2 game, which wasn't really sitting well with me, obviously, which wouldn't sit well with me. But the fact that Richard Nixon was there attending the game in person was just amazing, and he declared Texas national champion, though Penn State thought they had a hand in things. But Penn State was not obligated to a bowl because they were an independent at that time. Then came the 1970s, and college football exploding on TV and making things a whole lot different to the average viewer. So anyway, it was just pure gold what could happen. And the fact of the matter was that, we had that craziness in 1978 in which 4 of the top 5 schools actually dropped games and dropped a chance to be the year-end number 1. And Texas ended up losing it to Notre Dame. The Cotton Bowl, Notre Dame won that. And saw 2, 3, 4 all lose on the same day. And then the 1980s was when college football TV contracts were a whole lot different because Oklahoma sued the NCAA for things wanting a better TV contract and all that. And so, NBC, ABC, CBS, ESPN would all broadcast college football games, and they would all be in good graces with each other. And, they were fighting for recognition and all that. The 1990s brought Washington as its first main school. And then came the big news that Penn State would change from independent to Big Ten, and the Big Ten would get 11 schools, which was, of course, an oxymoron. But, of course, the 1990s were also known for the abolishment of the Big 8 turned into the Big 12, and also the fact that the Southwest Conference, which was a powerhouse with 8 Texas schools and Arkansas, would fold because of the whole SMU scandal in which, boosters would pay money to bring athletes to the school and all that. SMU getting the death penalty, meaning they were out of football for a year, but they gave themselves an extra year off because of the scandal. So that helped the Southwest Conference be bad, as Arkansas, Baylor, and Rice were the only ones of the 9 SWC schools to not have any major controversies. Arkansas kind of did, but they weren't big enough to constitute trouble. So Arkansas left for the SEC in 1992, and then the schools broke up. Many went to the Big 12, many went to Conference USA. It was just like, what can you do with the conferences and all that? And then the 2000s brought us good college football into the 21st century, with Miami being a powerhouse for the early part of the 2000s, then USC and Texas in the middle of the country playing hot potato with like recognition and all that. Currently in the true game of the century, Rose Bowl 2006, USC Texas for the national title, 1 versus 2. And USC thought they had it, but on 4th and 6, the national championship on the line. Or was it 4th and 5? 4th and 5. Vince Young running in for the touchdown, sealing it for Texas. It was just unbelievable how they broke USC's winning streak that way. The 2010s were a time that Fox really got into college football, and Gus Johnson went towards Fox for broadcasting games, and that was the game changer for me as a fan of Gus Johnson. The fact of the matter is that many schools would pretty good Clemson and Alabama were the class of the field in the 2010s. They knew what to do. And then, the pandemic hit in 2020. Many schools couldn't do a college schedule, or they did few games and all that. Without the fans there, that was a whole different atmosphere. By 2022, everything went back to normal in a way. College football is the big juggernaut in many states because you're cheering for a team in the state. You're not really cheering for an NFL team, you're cheering for a college team, which is a whole lot different in everyone's books. So anyway, that's just the history of college football in a nutshell, and I did pretty well keeping it very slow and sweet. Short and sweet, sorry, what am I saying? Anyway, I'm Jeff, I'm going to do